I'm wondering to what extent the Albanese Labor government and Foreign Minister Penny Wong and her advisors have consulted with the Australian Jewish community over any of these changes.
The consultation has been minimal to none. So we are paid a courtesy of a phone call explaining the government's position and what they're going to do. But it's not really a discussion. It's not really an opportunity to present our viewpoint. It's presented as a fait accompli. This is what's being done. So there was a time when we had, I suppose, closer relations with the government and perhaps were able to influence their decision-making to a greater degree, where our viewpoints and the views of the Jewish community were listened to. I don't think that's any longer the case. There are political considerations which are far bigger than our small Jewish community. We are seen as politically expendable, and I think the government has shown where it stands. As they say, all politics is domestic, and I think this is very much geared towards the election next year and looking at the threat from the Greens and also from the Muslim community. But, ultimately the electorate, the wider Australian community, will punish Labor for it. Australians demand politicians of integrity, of principle, not the ones that do whatever suits them to return to power. So I think this will come back to bite them.
Well, this change and this UN resolution, for that matter, is not going to deliver any benefit to the violence that exists in the Middle East now. It's not going to help to resolve that situation at all, which, of course, is the biggest issue. But I think the other big issue for Australia relating to Australia's stance is, of course, what Australia has done is a morale boost to the Islamist terrorists of Hamas and Hezbollah and their supporters in the region. But as I said at the opening of the program, it's essentially a morale boost to Islamist extremists everywhere around the world, including in Australia. When we've seen so much rampant hatred in this country, Jew hatred, anti-Semitism over the past 13 months or so, since October the 7th last year. Are you concerned about that? Are you concerned that Islamist extremism is being rewarded here by our own government?
Of course. And when this war eventually ends and the dust settles, Hamas, or what's left of it, and similar Islamist organizations throughout the world and the Iranian regime and other rogue states will evaluate what was accomplished by October 7. And they will look at the fact that as a result of that bloodshed, of that carnage, of that barbarism, they managed to bloody Israel's reputation in the international stage, that former allies like Australia, rather than rushing to assist Israel after it was attacked in such a way, actually backed away from it. So while militarily they would have been absolutely decimated, in terms of propaganda and PR and political victories coming from violence, they would view this as a success. And that is such a dangerous message to send. And it's contrary to our national interest. And I think the government thinks they're doing something that's politically useful for them, but I think they'll get a nasty shock next year as a result.
Thanks for joining us, Alex. That's so spot on.